The principle of progression, all right? This is why the TRX is so important and so useful, is the principle of progression. So change body angle to change the resistance. All right, that VRP there is vector resistance principle. So your vector resistance principle, okay, again, we talked about before, grandmas, average Joes, whoever. If your vector angle is here and you're doing a push-up, all right, this is going to be a lot easier than getting down and doing push-up down here. Okay, so if you have someone like a pro athlete or one of your linemen who can do push-ups really well, you'd be down here. Someone who can't do them as well, you have them up here. Okay, so that's just your vector resistance principle. Next one, you change your base of support. Okay, SP, that's your stability principle. So if you have someone doing a squat or a lunge, let's do a squat, on 2 legs, that's going to be a lot easier. So if someone comes in for rehab, as you progress them through, first couple of weeks you got them doing 2-leg squat. Next time you might have them doing 1 leg, as they progress through that. So now you can switch to 1 leg. Again, without switching machines or going all over the place, you've made it harder and progressed them just by changing the stability principle. If you want to make it even harder, you give them a Bosu ball or an Indo board or something like that and make it a little harder. Sit on that, good luck with that one. And then come up and down. And the way it basically goes for most of your exercises, staggered stance is going to be the easiest. Wide stance is next, narrow stance, and then 1 leg, and then 1 leg with something on it. So that's how you progress your athletes through their rehab process. So you might write their rehab sheet out. All right, week 1, we do 2 leg. Week 2, 1 leg, and then progress through there. Change starting position. This is the pendulum principle. And this, pendulum swings, the same thing here. That's your TP, the pendulum principle. This goes to mostly the hamstring exercises. So if you're on the ground, facing towards the anchor point, the heels in TRX, it's going to be harder for her if she starts further back. So as the athlete progresses, you can slide them back and make it a lot harder for them to do hamstring curls by changing the starting position. So that pendulum principle mostly goes to the ground facing exercises. The first sin is starting. All right, when you start, some people will be like, oh, this is easy, I can do this all day, and they'll be here. So they'll just come down, and they'll start at the end point, and then you tell them, all right, push up, and they'll be like, oh, I can't do it. So you want to make sure you start at the end point. This is where you're going to end up, that's where you're going to start at. So at starting sin, you want to make sure you start at the end point, or the end range of motion. Number 2, sawing. Big sin. Reason being, this TRX, this one we've had for like 5-6 years, and it's still working because we don't saw when we use the TRX. What sawing is, if she's doing a chest press on the TRX, and one arm is stronger than the other, she'll start sawing. You don't want it to saw. Okay, you want to make sure you stay stable. The whole point of it is to keep your core engaged, keep your abs tight so you don't twist and saw. Next one, slacking. This is huge, and I guarantee you when you guys come up, some of you are going to be doing this. If you're doing the IYRT, there should be constant tension on TRX. It should not be slacking ever. Always have tight tension on it, because you want to work through the whole set of motion. So if I'm doing the I's or Y's, I want constant tension. On my concentric, I'm going to keep tension, isometrically holding, and an eccentric, constant tension. People are going to start doing this, and then wonder why I'm not getting the results. Sagging, you'll see this a lot, especially if you work with younger people, because their cores are so weak from sitting in class all day. And probably some of you guys see kids walking around like this and then wonder why they don't have a six-pack. So you don't want the body sagging, so you want a good plank. So here she's sagging down, and then she'll try and pull up. Doing it this way, you want to make sure everything's tight, good plank, and then not sagging on it. The next one, scraping. When doing your chest presses or any exercise, the band should not be rubbing on your arms. So if you see someone doing this, they'll leave here with red marks all over their arms from scraping. All right, you want to make sure to change your hand position, and it shouldn't be rubbing against your arms when you're using it. And the last one is more for group classes. That's stopping. If the exercise gets too hard, you change your angle. You should never stop when training. But that's more for group classes and fitness. For rehab purposes, if the athlete's hurt, obviously you're going to stop. Suspension trainer length adjustments. On the newer ones, you see these little tabs here. Okay? They have tabs on here. So if the L is long, so that means the suspension trainer is all the way at the end range. You pull all the way down. MC's mid-calf. Most of your exercises will be mid-calf. And what that means is the strap's here right in the middle of your calf. All right, so if you're doing push-ups or anything like that, you want this right in the middle of your calf. Mid-length, you move it up to the mid-length. or S or OS, is short or over short, move it up here. So it all depends on, as you see, the older models don't have the tabs on anywhere. You have to kind of guesstimate what it is. This next part we're going to kind of skip. I just want to touch on it real quick. Napsmister is TRX's language to use in suspension trainer. And what the reason why they have that is you go to different group classes. So let's say you're in New York City, you take a class, and someone says we're doing a row, stand facing towards the anchor point, your endpoint's going to be here, you're going to keep this engaged, yada, yada, yada. It's its own language. Everywhere you go, everyone's talking the same language. Kind of like if I say, what's a Lockman's test? Everyone knows what Lockman's is and what it's used for. So they have their own language with suspension training. All right, rehab exercises. These are the ones we're going to go over today. You have your lower extremity. We have our squat series we're going to go over. Our lunge series, hamstring series. And then for upper extremity, our fly series, rotation, and core exercises. And you guys are working in groups. The reason why I want you guys working in groups is because in school they call it cheating, but once you guys graduate they call it collaborating. So we want you guys in groups. So we're going to go over all these. First I'm going to go over the squat series before I switch you guys in groups, just so you can see some different things or stuff you can add on to using the TRX. So I don't know if you guys use any assessment tools, but if you make most athletes do squats, you notice some kind of deviation in their squat pattern. Meaning, if you see like a lot of female athletes who overhead squat, their knees will bow inward. All right. So we use mini bands a lot at the high school for someone whose knees are bowing inward. So if you see someone who has, when they do squats, they're dropping in, you can give them mini bands. You can use the TRX, and what's going to happen is this will correct their squat form and make them activate their glutes more and push out against the mini bands to keep their knees straight. Okay. So if the knees are going in, you're going to push them in even more, so they self-correct rather than pulling out. That's one of the tools you can use for rehab if you have someone who constantly has medial knee pain and they're wondering why. You see in their squat, they go in, or their one-legged squat, they'll come in completely. You put mini bands and all of a sudden they'll start correcting that. Okay. Other one you can do, if you see someone squat and their knees are going way out every time they squat, you give them a ball, have them squeeze the ball between their legs, and then squat in that position. Okay, to get them to start learning to contract their adductors and bring their legs in closer. The reason why you work on that stuff is because if somebody's squatting like this, that means they're running probably like that. Obviously I'm exaggerating, but every time they run they're going to be doing something crazy. Other things you can do from a squat or a lunge is add some resistance to your athletes. Okay, so for this one we're going to do a lunge. So if you teach an athlete how to hip hinge or try to activate their glutes, one thing you can do is resist them, come down one-legged lunge, and you resist back, and now they have to drive that hip forward, activate their glute to drive their leg up. Okay, so different things you can do as far as making it more difficult for the athletes while using the TRX. All right, so what I want to do is put you guys into groups of 5, and we're going to go over each of these exercises.